Today I'm going to talk about how I made the very first original Liril film with the original Liril girl Karen Nolan for cinema in 1968.
Liril, the freshness soap to make a fresh new woman of you.
When I'm driving down to college in the pelting rain and I give a lift to two ladies at Marine Drive. While talking on the way, they asked me what I do. I said I'm trying to make a career in ad films. And she was quite interested. Mubi Ismail, her name was. She said, okay, come and see me in office. And they briefed me on this new launch of a soap that they were pitching to Hindustan Lever. It was called Liril. It was the first time in India there was a lemon soap with a marbled look on the surface. Mubi Ismail sent me off to shoot just waterfalls. She was going to do an audiovisual presentation for Hindustan Levers. I remember literally doing a Bharat Darshan from Kerala to Kodaikanal to Ooty to even Ranchi. So I traveled solo for a week with this Super 8 camera. I also managed to get my camera behind the fall, under the fall, and all kinds of unusual angles. Jason D'Cunha, who was the CEO of Lintas at that time, said, okay, I'll entrust you with the production of this film provided you take no advance. The next step in this production was to find the right Liril girl. I had a friend with whom I used to swim at the US Club, Karen Lunell. She looked good, and despite doing all those auditions, she got selected. I had to do some referencing. So I gathered as many prints. I used to book preview theaters and watch them. And then I started reading books on editing. And then eventually I said, okay, just let me go on location and improvise. The location we did choose was Kodaikanal. There was a fall called the Tiger Falls, which after we finished our shoot for Liril and after the film became famous, is now known as the Liril Falls. It's quite a steep fall into the valley off the road, about 50 feet down, and there was no path. So we went down there and I thought, okay, this is our location. This was a 3-camera shoot. We had a regular Neriflex 2C, which was a regular camera for the regular shots. I had decided to take a Mitchell along. A Mitchell is an old studio camera where you can take the film forward and reverse. Therefore, you can do some dissolves on camera and you can do certain effects in camera. And then there was just one high-speed camera of the whole of Bombay, which were also converted Mitchells. So I used to rent that with the crew, which used to do up to 150 frames per second, which was considered amazing. And then there was the kind of choreography we were doing. It was all made up right there on the spot. I would go in, I would tell Karen, okay, put your hair in the water and toss it. And she would toss it. Then we would say, okay, now splash. I knew the water would look good in slow motion, so I was doing all the shots in slow motion. I would tell her to come out emerge from behind the fall. You know, this kind of choreography, I was being blind. There was no video assist to watch those days. But eventually I found it was being copied by Bollywood. It was very flattering to know that was the first Liril film. The crew were friends. The cameraman, Prem Upadhyay, he had with him Kanal, who's now teaching cinematography. And we were all young, we were all aspiring to do something new. And I think that's what made a huge difference. We used to hardly get about 2 or 3 hours of shooting a day because the sun would shine in that valley only for a short while. The speed of the film was never fast enough to take shade clearly, and the water in any case looked better when it was sparkling. We were using star filters, which I had borrowed from Manoj Kumar, and we were using prism filters for multiple effects. It was all very gimmicky, all new and all being seen for the first time on the big screen for an ad. So as we went along shooting, I was learning. And I was really enjoying the process. The water is 4 degrees centigrade. We would get down there early in the morning when the sun used to hit that waterfall. We would shoot for 3 or 4 hours. Every shot would freeze the hell out of me and her. We were the only 2 people in the water. And then we would step out before the next shot, have a little swig of brandy and go ahead and do it. So we broke up that shoot in 3 parts. There was that whole bit on the waterfall. And then there was a bit at my house where we put up a ripple glass behind the shower and we would shoot mid shots and close ups of her belly button, shoulder upwards, arms and legs, whatever was allowable by the censors, actually using the soap. It all blended together very seamlessly. One last day of the shoot on location was pack shots. I had grown to love and really notice the patterns of sunlight on water, on these sparks of light. We would place packs, we would place lines, and we would do a whole day of just pack shots. I had done a music track, the late Vanraj Bhatia, the genius that he was. I had played some sample musics to him, told him we need lots of drum rolls because I want to cut on them. And of course, what I played to him was Western music, so I told him it has to be Indianized. He did it beautifully. That song, La 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 La, still lives on. Preeti Moti Sagar sang that vocal. I took that track, it was a 66-second track. 66 seconds because we were allowed to project 100 feet commercials in the theatres those days. And the first thing I would do was mark the track, the optical track with a marking pencil, marking the start and end of every beat, and just create the entire rhythm of that track visually. I started editing, and it was a purely experimental edit. There was no pre-plan, just the music track, and I would take shots, literally the good parts of every shot at random and cut them on those beats that I had marked. Every time there was a fast drum roll, sometimes the shots would even be 2 and 4 and 5 and 6 frames. The film got released in the theatres and I was overwhelmed with the responses I got from friends, from agencies. I was swamped with work, and that, I think, was the start of my career, the true start of my career. Those days, these films were shot for cinema. We could only make 250 films out of one negative. And this film had to be released in 5,000 theatres all over India. And actually, every year I would make 10 different 1-minute films. So the next year we had to make another film. I went on doing this for about 8 or 10 years. So when people call it the little film, it's actually about 80 of those films, which I made over those years with Karen Lunell. The whole idea was to have the bikini not too sexy and yet not too conservative. It wasn't about sex, it had to appeal to the housewife. It was about freshness. The subsequent year, that camera crew I worked with dispersed, and I got hold of Rao Saab, R.M. Rao, the ace cameraman and the busiest cameraman in the ad film industry. I also started doing some special effects abroad now. These effects were, for that time, for now, they look amateurish. For now, they look gimmicky. But at that time, they were brand new and again, awestruck a lot of people. And that was how I made the little film, and that was how the little film made my career. Surprisingly, this film, done 5 decades ago, is still remembered. It's really gone down in the history of Indian advertising. This is something which was considered path-breaking at that time. I don't think I ever thought it would be that path-breaking when I was making it. I was just enjoying the whole process. But look where it's landed.
With Lilo freshness, tingling, tangier, with the exciting freshness of limes. Lilo, the freshness soap to make a fresh new woman of you.